Welcome to Jazz Live at Home, a part of the BNY Mellon Presents Jazz Live series presented by the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of BNY Mellon Presents Jazz Live at Home, presented by the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. I'm Terry Bell, and today we're going to visit with performer, composer, arranger, and music educator Lynn Speakman. Born and raised in Goshen, Indiana, Lynn started playing piano in the first grade, switching to flute in the sixth, and then to saxophone in the 10th grade. While based in New York City, Lynn played with some impressive names, including the Christian McBride Big Band, Gerald Wilson and his orchestra, the Wycliffe Gordon Big Band, the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, Marcus Printup, Ron Blake, and countless others. As an educator, she's performed and taught at the Stanford Jazz Workshop, the Calhoun School, Jazz at Lincoln Center's Middle School Jazz Academy in New York City, Detroit Civic Youth Jazz, and Center of Life right here in Pittsburgh. Lynn also works with a large and impressive list of clients, lending her talent to composing, arranging, transcribing, and engraving music for them, as well as for her own band, the Lynn Speakman Quintet. She's created the Lynn Speakman Speaks With project, bringing New York-based artists such as Marcus Printup and Ron Blake to Pittsburgh for a live performance, a studio recording with her band, as well as an online interview. She brings technical mastery, energy, and passion to every note she plays. And if you've ever seen her perform, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She's called Pittsburgh home for the past 5 years, and we're so grateful to have her as a part of our jazz scene here. So I hope you enjoy this visit with Lynn Speakman.
Hey everybody, my name is Lynn Speakman. I play the alto saxophone, and I'm honored to be a part of Jazz Live at Home's video series. Well, I'm very grateful, first of all, for the health of my family and friends. My heart has been aching for all the pain and suffering, not just due to COVID-19, but I'll say one of the things that I've gotten out of this time musically is I've definitely gotten my recording setup and skills together a little bit more by necessity. But also I've been getting back in touch with people who live farther away that I don't normally get to see very much. Since our only option really is communicating online anyway, why limit it to the people that live nearby? So one of the fun things that I've been doing is playing games with my cousins in Toronto. We love to play Settlers of Catan. I'm a gamer, I love to play all sorts of games, but Settlers of Catan is the game that we most often play. So we've been playing that via Zoom several nights a week, and that's been something fun to look forward to. So since I'm still rather new in Pittsburgh, I'm going to start with just a little bit of my backstory. I went to Michigan State in the early 2000s, actually as a classical flute major, not as a jazz saxophone major, although I did add that major later on. I had played jazz in the jazz band in high school a little bit, kind of as a hobby, but my band director noticed that I really enjoyed it, so he encouraged me to audition for at least something in jazz when I got to college, which I did. And I ended up auditioning for Wycliffe Gordon, Ron Blake, and Rodney Whitaker, who I didn't know, fortunately, because I don't think I would have auditioned if I had known who they were. But anyway, I did what I could, and Wycliffe Gordon still gave me a chance, and he put me playing second alto in his jazz orchestra, in between what would become my teacher in the future and a big-time mentor on the other side of me, two fantastic saxophone players. What has been most influential to me in my career, this is the question I'm supposed to be answering here, is mentors. Starting with Diego Rivera, became my main teacher at Michigan State. He was playing lead tenor in the big band when I first got there. Patrick Turbeck great alto saxophone player was to my left in this band. And I learned so much from them. Also from Ron Blake, who was my first saxophone teacher. Eventually I did add the jazz major and finished with both classical flute and jazz saxophone, and went on and did my master's in jazz studies. And after that, I ended up moving to New York City. Ron Blake was instrumental in that transition for me, but we kept in touch. He was always interested in flute, and I was always interested in trying to take more lessons with him as well. So we would trade lessons whenever he would come in town. And after I graduated with my master's, I went to New York City just to hear some music, and I did a lesson trade with Ron at that point. And he called me a couple days later and said, "Hey, what are you thinking about doing now? You know, my family could use a lot of help. I have 2 young girls, need help with music notation. One of the things I do is I take people's handwritten music or recordings and make them look nice on Finale music notation software." But I said, "No, I'm not good enough. I wouldn't be able to do anything in New York City. I don't know what you're talking about." But he talked me into it, and it's something that I will never regret. His family made it possible for me to survive in New York for the first bit. They really helped me a lot, and I lived there for 7 years. I met many more mentors, still kept up with Wycliffe Gordon. Steve Wilson is a big mentor of mine. Jeffrey Keyser, Ingrid Jensen, Christian McBride. Just being able to hang out with and hear and play music with these amazing musicians, and that they, for some reason, chose me to invest in. That's what's been most influential to me in my career so far. I'll say that most times I'm listening to a good, healthy portion of Julian Cannibal Adderley's music. And the reason why I'm so drawn to his music, besides it being super funky and hard swinging, just good music, but it's very joyful music. So especially during times of adversity, I definitely gravitate towards Cannonball's music. But I'm also listening to the music of many of my mentors. I'm saddened that I'm not able to go to hear them in New York City right now, so I've been listening to recordings of them that I have instead, whether it be live recordings or CDs that they've made in the past. Ron Blake, Jeffrey Keezer, Steve Wilson. Steve Wilson, one of my favorite albums that he is on is actually Taine's album, Jeff Taine Watts, his album Family. So I know there are a lot of Taine fans here in Pittsburgh. Be sure to check that one out. But I'm also listening to a lot of classical music. I like to listen to the WQED when I'm in the car. And I just got a big collection of Debussy's piano works, which I've been checking out. So if it's non-jazz, one of my favorite 90s bands, as well as my husband's, is Dave Matthews Band. So we've gone to a couple of their concerts, and it's always a really good time. I'm missing that as well. I'll tell you a quick funny story about Taine's album Family. I was fortunate enough to be invited to that session by Steve Wilson, the saxophone player on it. And so I got to sit in the control room while they recorded the whole album. And one of the tunes that they played, which was, I believe, one of Taine's tunes, it's called A Wreath for John T. Smith. And it's just a gorgeous walking ballad, great writing. So they played that song start to finish, and he asked the guy in the control room, how long was it? He said, 9 minutes and 21 seconds. And Taine said, wow, that's on the long side for an album, you know. So they decided to record it again. He counted it off maybe a little bit faster, and they played through the whole thing again. And he asked the guy in the control room, how long was it again? And the guy says, 9 minutes, 21 seconds. Exactly the same length. So Taine said, well, I guess that's where it lays. And that's what it is on the album today. And I'm so glad that they decided to still put it on the album, even though it was a bit long. But it's just such a great tune and such a great vibe that they caught while playing the tune. Well, I mentioned games. I love playing board games, card games, video games, you name it. I'd be very surprised if you didn't know that I love dogs. I have 2 sweet beagles, which I've also written songs about. But something that you might not know, if you had asked me in middle school what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have told you I wanted to design and build roller coasters. I've always loved roller coasters. The taller and faster, the better. Gone to Cedar Point since I was a kid, among other amusement parks. Top Thrill Dragster is one of my favorite roller coasters. You start at a standstill and they shoot you out of the platform, and you go 0 to, I forget how fast, but quite fast. Fast enough to go straight up 400 feet over the top, straight back down 400 feet, and that's pretty much the ride. But wow, what a ride. You'll see me with my hands up. I usually put my feet up too so that I can get maximum air time. One of those crazy people. In 2008, I was fortunate enough to be able to perform at the Detroit Jazz Festival with the Christian McBride Big Band. This is one of the first times that he put together a big band, and he was the artist in residence that year at the festival, and they had him put together a big band of local musicians. This is when I had just graduated from Michigan State, and we were to perform a tribute to Marvin Gaye. So we had a couple vocalists, and Christian arranged brilliantly many of Marvin Gaye's tunes for big band. So if that's not exciting enough, I got to perform in a section with all 3 of my teachers. I mentioned Ron Blake already. He was playing lead tenor. Diego Rivera, my teacher was playing second tenor, and Wes Warm Daddy Anderson was playing lead alto, who became my teacher when I was in grad school. He was just retired from Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra and came and taught at Michigan State for a bit. So I was very fortunate to have him become one of my mentors as well. So I'm sitting in a section with these guys, and Christian McBride is playing bass, and Jeffrey Keyser is playing piano, and it was the opening night of the festival, and if you've ever been to the Detroit Jazz Festival, you know what I mean. It was just alive. So that was definitely a highlight of my performance career. Well, I'll say that this isn't the first pause that I've experienced during my career. 8 years ago, my husband and I got married, and just over a year later, he had a stroke. And he survived the stroke, thankfully, but initially it took out most of his motor skills. He could not walk, he couldn't talk, he could not even stand or really move very well. So needless to say, while we were helping him to recovery, I was all hands on deck with that and sort of took a pause with my music career and life, as it were. So, but he did recover, and I'm thankful for times like this because it causes you to step back and really reevaluate what's most important in your life, and also to let go of some things that you've been holding on to that maybe aren't so healthy. But as far as music is concerned, in getting through adversity, my writing has definitely changed. I've written many tunes just about dealing with adversity, about the feelings of being in times of adversity, and also getting through adversity. I have a tune called Resilience, which I wrote sort of after the fact when Josh was back on his feet. And have a tune called Bridges Not Walls, which was written, sort of a tune written out of frustration for the lack of that sentiment. But yeah, music has really helped me to express myself better than I can with words during times of adversity. Well, first of all, thank you so much for supporting the music and for taking some of your time out today to spend time with me, albeit virtually. I very much look forward to the time when I can perform for you and fellowship with you again. In the meantime, take care, be safe, and God bless.
We hope you've enjoyed this inside look at Pittsburgh's jazz scene and the artists who make it so very special. We'd like to thank our sponsor, BNY Mellon, for their continued support of the JazzLive series. And on behalf of all of us at the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and spending this time with us. We couldn't do it without you. We hope that you'll consider making a donation. It is through your generous support that we've been able to bring you world-class arts experiences for more than 35 years and to your home during this time of intermission. Please go to trustarts.org/supportjazz. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.